Afshin, when we look at this roster of nominees, and we've heard from some of them already at these confirmation hearings in Congress, it's very conservative, it's geared in some way towards business. But the one thing that seems to run through all of them is that they're not afraid to seek a confrontation. You know, if I could put it in street parlance, here's a team that says it's going to be our way or the highway.
Right.
Is that a fair assessment?
You know, well, I think that, no, certainly there's some tough characters here.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, General Mattis was famously once said, when you walk into a room, you know, be polite, be professional, and have a plan to kill everyone in that room, right? You know, so having said that, I mean, you know, these are, you know, for the most part, serious, you know, people. These are not, you know, wild cards, you know.
Right.
And even Rex Tillerson, someone like Rex Tillerson, I've often thought that we do need, you know, more economic statecraft from the State Department. We do need to be able to see opportunities, because what happens, what I worry about with the Trump team, and what I worry about with President-elect Trump as well, is he seems to be reducing foreign policy to a counterterrorism strategy, right? Foreign policy is much more than that. There's actually a lot of opportunities out there. We're living in a world of rapid urbanization, growing middle classes, incredible technological connectivity and physical connectivity. There's a lot of opportunities for an American president to tap you know, that growing middle class. You know, we can use enormous amounts of soft power if we do that. But if we only think of foreign policy in terms of national security, threats, counterterrorism, then I fear that we are going to find ourselves stumbling into confrontations that we probably didn't need to be in.
Okay, Alexander, this is what Rex Tillerson had to say about Russia at the congressional hearing.
Russia today poses a danger, but it is not unpredictable in advancing its own interest. I think the important conversation that we have to have with them is, does Russia want to now and forever be an adversary of the United States? Do you want this to get worse, or does Russia desire a different relationship? We're not likely to ever be friends. I think, as others have noted, our value systems are starkly different. We do not hold the same values.
So, Alexander, there we have Rex Tillerson there, a bit of a confrontational tone in what he said there, but we also have Donald Trump saying, look, if Vladimir Putin wants to be my friend, well, that's great. We can improve relations, that's even better. What do you make of it?
Well, I think we should wait till the 20th of January, to be honest, because a lot of things have been said during the campaign, a lot of things have been said after the election itself, and I think until Donald Trump is sworn in, we will hear still, in the last remaining 8 days, all sorts of things, all sorts of strange things and contradictory things and so on. What I know from the history of ExxonMobil operating in Russia, I think Tillerson was actually a big diplomat. I think that he was very flexible. I think he understood some of the sort of unconventional ways of doing business in Russia. I think he developed extremely good relations with Putin and the government and so on. So I don't really give a lot of credence to what he's saying about Russia. I think we will start, you know, seeing the policy developing after the 20th. And I think a lot of things that are being said now will be probably forgotten after the 20th of January. And I think that generally Donald Trump has shown his willingness to work with Russia. He understands the value of working with Russia. I would also warn that I don't think really that Donald Trump is going to be aggressive towards China, the way a lot of people are saying now, because I think he's a pragmatic man. He understands the value of China for America. He also understands that China is spectacularly successful in economic terms. And obviously there will be frictions with America, but I don't really see any serious confrontation between America and China.
Lester, one other foreign policy issue which has significant domestic political significance, and that is the wall that Donald Trump says he wants to build along the US-Mexico border. The wall, he told us at the beginning of the campaign, that'll be built and paid for by Mexico. It's changed a bit now. It's going to be paid for by the United States, and then they will claim the money from Mexico. What's the status of that? Was that just political rhetoric, or is that going to happen?
Well, remains to be seen, I think. Money, of course, is fungible, and I think the president-elect is using that to maximum effectiveness. He will, I think he'll keep talking about Mexico playing some role in paying for the wall as long as he possibly can. At the same time, there are huge practical difficulties in actually building a wall along the border with Mexico that we'll have to confront at a certain point. So even if there is an attempt to build a wall along part of the border with Mexico, some of it may end up being a virtual wall or an alternate wall or an alternative wall. But I think he'll keep talking about it being a wall, and he'll keep talking about Mexico having a role in paying for it. I fully expect those things to continue. I think the reality, we'll have to go see.
It catches the imagination. It certainly does. One other thing I want to ask you, Lester, and that is the Gallup organization did a poll not so long ago. It was actually a measurement of Donald Trump's ability to handle an international crisis, and that was measured against previous presidents. Well, not all previous presidents. They actually measured it against Barack Obama as well. He scored very low,
yes.
Less than 50%, about
That's
44%. Right. Whereas if you look at the Bush figures and the Obama figures and the Bill Clinton figures as well, they were in the upper 70s at this stage.
It's a fascinating question, and it kind of goes to the heart of who Donald Trump is. He comes in with very low approval ratings. He came in with almost a historically low percentage of the popular vote, even though he won the Electoral College rather handily. And as you note, people don't have a lot of confidence in his ability to handle a crisis. So in a way, that's an asset for him. He would describe that as an asset, as low expectations. So once he encounters a crisis, if he successfully handles it, imagine how much his approval ratings are going to go up when people are surprised at how well he does. Now, and even if he doesn't do well, people may have already built that into their expectations, and they might give him a little longer leash to actually get things done on the international stage. So I think in a perverse way, that low expectation actually works very well for him.
Victor, we had one very, I would say, aggressive statement from Rex Tillerson at the congressional hearing. He said, and I'm quoting here, "We're going to have to send China a clear signal that first, the island building stops, and second, your access to those islands also is not going to be allowed."
I think Mr. Tillerson, as far as his remark is concerned, is indulging in fantasy. The island building is there. The Chinese are moving into these islands for commercial purposes, for non-commercial purposes, and this is a fact. Nothing can be done by the United States to interrupt Chinese access to these islands, and China will have full control of these islands, and the United States will not be able to engage with China in this manner to deny access of China to these islands. Therefore, again, I urge Mr. Tillerson to do his homework, to do a thorough study, and to engage China as a partner rather than an adversary. Otherwise, he will steer a very dangerous course, leading to a collision between China and the United States, and eventually the United States will not come out of that conflict as a winner. That's the fact that Mr. Tillerson needs to be fully prepared against.
Afshin, let's talk about the Iran nuclear deal. Sure. During the election campaign, Mr. Trump was very clear on that. That deal has to go. He called it the worst deal on the planet. Right. Now we're hearing a more nuanced view that the deal may stay, but it requires more, let's say, stringent policing mechanisms inside it. Right. Add to that the fact that Rex Tillerson said previously, while he was the head of ExxonMobil, he said he's got nothing against doing business with Iran. Right. Do you think that deal will survive?
You know, I think it's a good question, Anand, because there's still a lot of uncertainty of where President-elect Trump is going with the Iran deal. Someone once joked that there's so much uncertainty that he could either be building Trump Towers in Tehran or bombing Tehran, one or the other. But having said that, if Donald Trump does want, as he said, to get America out of the business of fighting wars in the Middle East, right? He's going to need to preserve some level of that nuclear deal, because if he doesn't, those centrifuges are going to begin spinning again. And when those centrifuges begin spinning again, then his national security team is going to come to him with a choice. And if they're going to come to him with the choice of, military action. And then when he's brought with that choice, he spent so much time on the campaign trail bashing President George W. Bush for the Iraq War. But I think what's going to happen is while he probably won't take, direct action to repeal the deal, he's not going to go out of his way to indulge Tehran either. I think there will be a more confrontational stance towards Iran throughout the region.
Alexander, let's talk about the Ukraine crisis. There are sanctions in place right now. Do you think there will come a point when the United States and its allies realize that they are not going to be able to sanction or force Russia out of Ukraine or out of Crimea through sanctions? Do you think they'll stay in place?
Well, that's a difficult question, to be honest, because we have to understand that for Putin, the crisis in Ukraine is the #1 international issue. That Syria is basically, it's in the background here. And I think that Putin will be quite keen on dealing with this matter as soon as possible. He will be quite keen to get some sort of signals coming from Trump publicly that he is willing, to negotiate. I suspect that Moscow is expecting that Kyiv, the Ukrainian President Poroshenko, it will be softening his position towards Russia and towards the crisis in eastern Ukraine and even Crimea, in a sense, when Trump comes to the White House. And I think that the signs are good. The signs are good, but it's a very complicated issue. And this is why I would sort of caution about any sort of hopes getting too high about Ukraine quickly resolving itself. It's a much better position, let's put it this way, than under Obama's administration. But I think it will take quite a lot of time to resolve the issue of Crimea and the issue of the eastern Ukraine.
All right, Victor, another flashpoint, and that is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and its nuclear program. We heard Rex Tillerson tell us during that congressional hearing that China has not been a reliable partner in using its full influence to curb the DPRK. Is Donald Trump going to expect China to flex its muscle a bit more when it comes to Pyongyang?
Both Mr. Donald Trump and Mr. Rex Tillerson have emphasized that on the DPRK's nuclear weapons are concerned, China's help will be indispensable. And they may be right on this particular point. But philosophically speaking, both Mr. Trump and Mr. Tillerson need to know that if you really want to incentivize China to do the right thing on any major issues in the world, be it DPRK's nuclear weapon, Syria, any other major issues in the world, you really need to treat China as a partner, as an equal partner. You cannot afford to belittle China, to threaten China in the South China Sea, and want to bring China as a partner willing and happy to help the United States in dealing with any other crisis in the world. That's the wrong approach. That destroys all the fun of working together as partners with each other. And I think if the United States, including Mr. Donald Trump and Mr. Tillerson, do not make that major turn around the right corner, then the relations between China and the United States will be stuck. China will treat the United States as a worthy partner in dealing with all the issues in the world, including the DPRK's nuclear program. But you need to be on the same page with China, and the two countries need to look at these issues eye to eye and come up with a concerted effort, rather than you destroy me on one point and you want me to pay you back in a positive way on the other point. DPRK's problem need to be resolved, and it will require close cooperation of all the major stakeholders together, including China and the United States. And the United States, either Mr. Obama or President Trump, need to deal with China as a worthy and equal partner. That's the bottom line.
All right, Afshin, one other issue, and we've just got about 30 seconds for this, unfortunately, and that is Cuba.
Right.
We had the Obama administration open to Cuba, normalized relations, restoration of diplomatic relations, etc. Could that be undone?
I think we will see Cuba flourish when Cuba decides that they want to themselves reach out to the United States. I don't think there's going to be anything that Donald Trump is going to do to undo that deal, but Cuba could flourish only if they decide, in much the way China decided from the late 70s onwards, to reach out to the United States.
Okay, that's where we're going to have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for joining us.